Have you ever had that feeling where, on paper, everything is perfect? You've got the job, you've got the security, maybe even the house, but there's still this nagging sense that something's missing? Well, today we're going to dive into a really powerful idea that might just be the key to understanding that feeling. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's so much more than a dry psychological theory. It's like a roadmap to figuring out what genuine fulfillment actually looks like.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a feeling that hits home for so many of us, right? It's like you've checked all the boxes, you've climbed the ladder you were told to climb, and yet you're left with this void. It can be really confusing. You start asking yourself, is there something wrong with me? Or is there just some big piece of the puzzle that we haven't found yet?
And that is exactly the right question to ask. And believe it or not, a psychologist named Abraham Maslow came up with a pretty powerful answer way back in 1943. He basically suggested that all our human motivations are built up in layers, kind of like a pyramid. And that feeling of something's missing, well, a lot of the time, that comes from us trying to build the fancy stuff at the top of the pyramid before the foundation at the bottom is even solid. Right? And that building metaphor is just so perfect. I mean, think about your own life, your own sense of fulfillment as a building. Maslow's whole point was that if those lower levels, the absolute basic stuff, if they're not taken care of, then everything else you try to pile on top, your relationships, your career, your ambitions, it's all just going to feel wobbly. It's going to be shaky. Okay, so let's actually dig into this pyramid. There are 5 main levels. And what's cool is you can almost use them as a diagnostic tool for your own life. We're going to start right at the very bottom with the most fundamental needs and work our way all the way up to the top, to the absolute peak of what it means to be human. All right, so let's start at the very foundation. Level 1. This is all about our physiological needs. I mean, this is the bedrock, the absolute non-negotiables our bodies need just to function. You could think of it as our basic survival motor. And we're talking about the most essential things you can imagine: air to breathe, food to eat, water, sleep. I mean, if you don't have these, your body literally can't function. It's just impossible to even begin to think about things like ambition or love or creativity when you're, starving or completely exhausted. This stuff comes first, period. Okay, so once our body has what it needs to survive, our brain immediately shifts gears and moves to the next level up: safety. We're not just trying to make it through the next few hours anymore. We're now trying to secure our future. It's funny how that plays out in modern life, isn't it? I'm only half joking when I say this, but that feeling of pure panic when you see your phone on 2% and there's no charger anywhere, it feels weirdly primal. It's like, has Wi-Fi and battery life become our new safety blanket? It might sound silly, but that feeling actually taps right into this level. It's not literally life or death, of course, but it's all about our deep need for predictability and security. So more traditionally, we're talking about things like having a roof over your head, financial security, your health and wellness, really anything that keeps anxiety at bay and makes life feel stable and predictable. So once you feel physically safe and your world feels pretty stable, we're immediately driven by one of our most powerful instincts of all, the need to connect with other people. This is level 3, love and belongingness. We're just fundamentally social creatures. We are hardwired for community. And this is where that deep, deep need comes into play. And wow, does that feel more important than ever today? I mean, we can have thousands of friends online, but somehow feel more alone than ever before. It's just so easy to confuse all those digital connections with real, genuine belonging. You've hit the nail on the head. This level is all about the quality of our relationships, not the quantity. We're talking about real friendship, family bonds, being part of a group, a tribe. And this isn't some fluffy, nice-to-have thing. The need is profound. I mean, scientific research actually shows that the emotional pain of loneliness can light up the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain. So, once we feel like we belong, that we're part of a tribe, a new question starts to pop up in our minds. Okay, but what's my role in this group? How am I valued here? And that brings us right to level 4, esteem. This is all about our need for respect, not just from other people, but, and this is crucial, from ourselves too. That makes so much sense, especially when you think about work. A company can give you a great salary, right? And that takes care of your safety needs on level 2. But if no one ever acknowledges your hard work, if your contributions are just ignored, you're still going to feel unmotivated and kind of empty. It's that deep need for recognition. And that brings us to the very peak of the pyramid. Once all those other needs are more or less taken care of, we get to the final, ultimate human drive, Level 5, self-actualization. This is about one thing, the desire to become the absolute most that you can be. And this right here is so often the answer to that question we started with, that nagging feeling that something's still missing. This is the point where we shift from focusing on what we have to focusing on who we are. It's not about getting pats on the back from other people anymore. It's about what drives you from the inside. Your creativity, your personal growth, solving problems, pursuing a passion just because you love it. It's about reaching for your full, unique potential. But here's the catch, and it's a pretty big one. Maslow himself estimated that only about 2% of people ever fully reach this state of self-actualization. Wait, hold on. 2%? That's it? That seems impossibly low. Why on earth is it so rare? You know, that stat makes me question the whole thing a little bit. I mean, does this pyramid have to be such a strict step-by-step ladder? What about the classic example of the starving artist? They're clearly all in on self-actualization, right? But they're actively sacrificing their basic needs for food and safety to make their art. Doesn't that kind of break the whole model? That's an excellent critique, and it's exactly why modern psychology has kind of updated Maslow's original idea. So instead of thinking of it as a rigid ladder you have to climb one rung at a time, a lot of psychologists now see it more like a fluid wave. The lower needs are still super important for sure, but they aren't necessarily strict prerequisites. We can absolutely at times choose to prioritize a being need, like creativity, over a having need, like a bigger paycheck. So that starving artist isn't actually an exception that breaks the model. They're the perfect example of how flexible it can be. They're making a conscious choice to prioritize that powerful, top-level need for self-actualization, even if it means temporarily letting a lower-level need slide. So the hierarchy gives us the framework, but our own journey through it is personal, and it's definitely not always a straight line up. So this is where the theory becomes a really practical tool that you can use today. Think of your feelings as a kind of diagnostic guide. If you're feeling anxious and stressed all the time, maybe look at your safety needs. Feeling lonely and isolated? That's a pretty clear signal from your need for love and belonging. Insecure or feeling unrecognized? That points to esteem. And that feeling of emptiness we talked about at the very beginning? That's your self-actualization need, basically waving a flag and asking for some attention.
So this brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. And this one is for you. Yeah, take a look at this pyramid and just ask yourself honestly, where are you spending most of your energy today? And then, more importantly, what's just one small thing, one tiny step you could take to start moving upward, to start feeding that next level? Because really, understanding the map is the very first step to actually getting somewhere new on the journey. Thanks for digging into this with us today.